Oh, good God. Well, that was not what I was expecting from that. Alright. Well, I guess I was going to review you, Grandpage, but due to time constraints, I guess I'm going to have to do this one instead. Okay.
Let me out! Let me out!
You be quiet. Obviously, turntable time. So, I guess I'll get into the review at this point. So, guys, if you saw that video, it's been a weird day. Yeah, it's been a really weird day. So, as covered in Rodimus's video, this is our GBN-ECT-01 Buster frame, custom guard frame. And being that the story is that within GBN, bugs keep coming up, very similar to Sarah, but in this case, potentially more malevolent spirits type things who are damaging GBN itself, or even corrupted Gunpla, or even, you know, NPCs, stuff like that. We created this idea. Now, it was his idea first. He came up with the idea. He loves Ghostbusters, as do I. And I guess he came up with it back whenever he got the Ectotron. So, I'm just going to go ahead and make use of turntable time here. So I'm going to do the walk around. So, I will have a build log of sorts for this guy. So you can see how I made the backpack and other things like that. Unfortunately, I did that thing where I got too involved in the build and got distracted from actually recording the build log a few times, but I do have most of it recorded. Now it is, for the most part, just the unedited version of the guard frame, but with new paint apps and stuff like that. So the body didn't change. It's just painted up to look like one of the Ghostbuster uniforms, and of course I based it off of his color scheme as covered in the video. Only a few minor details here and there that are different, because mine's supposed to be the upgraded version. Because if you watched his video, you could see the main differences between his stuff and my stuff. Obviously my level of scratch building is a little bit more advanced than his, but it was his idea in the first place, and of course he gave me a lot of the parts necessary to make it happen. So I'm going to go ahead and get it off the turntable. Would you be quiet? And then take some closer looks at it. Alright guys, so take a closer look at the guard frame. As you can tell, like I said, it's been painted up, and this was using Deck Tan from Tamiya, matte black from Tamiya, Tamiya red, matte red, brush paint, little jar, little sky blue down here, little silver, and then some, is it German gray, I think it's some German gray, and the matte black in the knees. And I was going for a look of the Ecto-1 bumpers. That's why, if you look at the differences between mine and his, the bumpers are silver on mine, or the bars. Now, the funny thing is, even though you can see that I've added some weathering and even some dry brushing to this guy, the brushing on the knees, a little damage there, that's actual real rub off. So, the other thing is, up here on the top, I do have some pure white for the head and the top of the neck area. And as we discussed in his video, the heads are actually trying to be reminiscent of the Ecto-1. This one kind of being toy indicative, where it kind of had blue windshields and stuff, and then painted the kind of straps on the back of the head, for lack of a better term, with some clear Tamiya red over the white. So that's actually not a solid red. It's a clear red. Came out really nice. It was a masking nightmare, but it came out real nice. All the articulation and stuff is the same, so really it's going to just come down to details and things that I've done. And you can just see he's been on a couple missions but hasn't earned his stripes, so to speak. You know, up here on the shoulders, a bit more crud. Up there on the head. And you can see back here on the back of the legs, some paint details. All kind of came from Thomas's version. And I got some dry brushing back here. The knee guards, elbow guards rather, are all battered up a little bit. It's actually harder to see in pictures than anything else. And even here on the joints, you can see that I added some nice silver dots just inside there for the heck of it. Though one problem I had, of course, is getting paint down inside there. I should have tried to brush it on. I also tried to weather inside there to make it a little less obvious the paint didn't quite get there, but, you know, didn't exactly work. But ultimately, the guard frame itself didn't change much with the exception of the paint job. Now, it does just have the standard hands with the cool wrist in there, but this one, as you can see there, is clearly very wallowed out. And you'll see why when we get to the weapons and such. But I do also have a expressive hand. This does come from the hand set that you can get for build divers stuff. And unfortunately, to get the right size peg, I had to use a smaller peg, but then this size hand. So actually, it's super loose. So if I ever wanted to use that, I would need to tighten it up quite a bit. And with some glue or some paint or something. I was hoping that the paint would actually be enough, but this was originally how it was going to hold the weapons, or the proton ones specifically. Trying to adjust the lighting a little so that my hand is not always in front of the light. Maybe that'll help. But either way. So, of course, we want to take a look at the weapons and stuff, because that was the main thing. Now, of course, the backpack, as previously discussed, does just plug right back in there. On the back, you can see it's got some dry brushing to look like it's rubbed off. Okay, so better look at the proton pack, and it is layered bits and pieces of different off-cut parts, including the initial backpack, as you can see here, and then coming down to the base of it. This is the more custom part that I did versus what Thomas did. He layered two backpacks on top of each other in reverse, so the holes and stuff are facing forward from one and backward on the other. And then he put the radome bit here. I actually used just regular plug plate glued to the base here. Now, one thing you'll notice is if you look just inside there, it's kind of hard to see with the gun in the way. The actual thickness here is the stand of a ball, which, you know, actually contributed quite a bit to these model kits. Now, I did drill into there, just ran some wires over to what I think were either off-cut bits of runner, or they were beam saber handles. I don't remember exactly what they were. I did use my pin vise just to drill in a little bit on both sides, and the wires actually were black and blue originally, but I painted red. And you got this little knobby type detail thing on the top, and then I can't tell what this plastic bit was in here. I have no clue what it was for. I think it had something to do with the vernier kit, but I actually don't know what the piece is. I just inserted it in there so there wasn't just a huge gap, as you can sort of see, and then painted it blue to be like the power indicator that was sort of in that area. Hey, look, my video's done processing. Okay, but back down to here for the bottom layer bits. I guess I can say this. So the thruster here thingy, whatever it should be, is just an aquatic like pod thing. I don't know where he got it from. But his uses the same detail. So I tried to reuse a lot of the same details so they tied together. But if we come down here to the base, once again, so here's the radome part right here. And then layered on top of that is actually the arm socket cup thing of a Haro. So I had leftover ones from when I did busted Haro and weathering experiments. It's literally just flipped upside down. But of course, if you know, there's a big hole in that. So there's a piece of plate on top of that in which I drilled the other holes that are for the like little red lights. If you're wondering why that detail is there, well, when I tapped into it, it actually went into the main hole. So that's just to cover the hole itself. Then I added the band here, just a plug plate band, and then another off-cut bit of runner or something to indicate like the big kind of screw hole that holds everything together. And then you got the detail down here, which is all part of the thruster thingies that came with all the GBN Gundam and the guard frame and stuff. Then off-cut bits of runner and other pieces to fill in here. Added the extra wire. Now up here to where the actual proton wand mounts, that is clearly the arm shield from, or shield arm mount from Exia. So my Exia that went into Rampage gave up some more parts. So this part is all untouched, and then in here is a piece of plug plate connecting it to the backpack. And when I say plug plate, it's just styrene. It's not name brand plug plate. Though I am a little worried that after shaping everything, it gets a little bit scary loose. Or that it will, rather. Oh, and there's that gap, so you can see right there. That's where the ball tends to sit. Now the wire, I believe, is 16 or 18 gauge wire, and it's just inserted in there so that you have a little bit of room to move, but it's easier to go ahead and take out so we can look at the proton one. Sorry, I'm looking at the gauge, and it says 18. Okay, so it is 18 gauge wire. So the proton wand is bits and pieces from different things. So the actual base weapon, which is a gun of some sort that had a little canister that plugged into the back, it came from a different weapon set. I'll have it here on the screen because I can't think of it right now off the top of my head. But I did end up cutting the handle off and using the handle from the actual GBN rifle. And then as you go through, most of this is just plug plates surrounding that base gun, and then the tip of it kind of cut off. And then as you can see here, this is actually the barrels of that GBN rifle cut off and turned sideways. And then this is, of course, the upright bit of the ball stand, and then all the little details and weathering done there. So there's supposedly on the real one, so to speak, there is 3 little lights kind of right there. They weren't blue, they were actually white, but I did that. And then a little red bit here kind of as a power indicator. And then a little offcut bit of wire that was red, but then after painting everything black, it was black, so I had to paint it with some matte red to get it back. And then this knobby looking thing, that's actually the power knob. There would be normally a little flip switch below that too, but there's no way I could make that happen. That actually was the tip of the nozzle of the little canisters that plug into this gun. By the way, this piece right here that the wire goes into, that's just plate cut and shaped to fit there. And then there's the arm plug for where it goes, and you can see definitely dry brushed a lot more because, well, hey, that's where all the damage is going to be. So let's go ahead and arm this guy up. So backpack, plain and simple. Plugs on. Obviously you guys have seen it on the thing. That's not a big deal. So that just looks good, if I'm honest. Now the gun is slightly tricky because the wire is pretty stiff. So you just kind of have to work it and bend it. And normally whenever they grab their things, they'll reach up and over. We just pretend that it can't do that. You know, it sort of can. It would have a hard time getting to the handle, if I'm honest with myself. Okay, so that's inserted. Why does it feel like it's hitting something? There it goes. Okay. It's like I knew it could go in more. So, of course, with these hands, you gotta pull the back off. If I'd really considered it, I would have actually trimmed the little nubbin off the end of the handle of the gun to slide in easier, but this is more secure. Now, one problem I have is these hands not wanting to line up properly, like the actual back of the hands. So there it is, holding the gun, at least single-handed, but this is a Ghostbuster thing. So I want to pop the shoulder joint a little bit, turn that shoulder over, rotate the hand, and we'll make use of the fact that I've gutted that hand out. Now, when it was all still raw plastic, this actually would slide over the barrel, no problem, like from the end. I could actually slide it in. But given that once it was painted, it didn't do that no more. And then this is problematic to line this up, but there we go. And one thing I didn't notice before was how that lines up to everything else. And I can try. If you utilize most of the joints, should be able to make use of this. There we go. Turn that wrist down. And see, we'll aim the head a little bit. Tilt the hand, and there you go. He's totally using his gun. That's awesome. So that's one thing, major difference between mine and Thomas's. His is just a rifle, but because he doesn't dual wield it, he doesn't get the stability, and his wire actually ends up causing it to point downward at the ground. And with how loose these hand or the ball joint wrists are, it can cause some major issues. Now, of course, these aren't the only accessories. There's still the other one.
Let me out!
The trap. So, once again, we're going to go down to the white area. Coincidentally, didn't have to adjust the focus. So, the trap that is now filled with some kind of evil entity thing.
I'll get out of here!
Yeah. Was almost entirely scratch built, with the exception of some pieces. Like this handle came from that same weapon set that the gun came from. This is just an off-cut bit of grilling kind of thing that was from another weapon set entirely. This is, of course, from the same parts from the Gundam and or guard frame kits. And same thing on this side. And then these are two off-cut bits. So if you look at the runners occasionally, there's some that are half cut. They're not full round. That's exactly what those are. They're just cut off and then glued onto plate. And then the doors here, that's actually a piece of, it's styrene that is made for doing like paneling on like walls or ceilings or whatever, if you're building something like that. So the groove down the middle for the doors was already there. Though you can see in the reflection where I tried to score the stripes originally and how very off they were, if I'm honest. But originally I only did the 3 stripes, and then that didn't quite get that corner. And then I realized it looked funny because this whole side was black, so I ended up trying to scrape that corner out. Well, it works. I actually scraped too deep and took out the yellow. So, guys, just point of interest here. I painted the yellow first, and then painted everything black, and then hand painted all the details. Now, the actual light right there is just the part of a beam saber that you plug into the hilt. That's all that is, cut off, and didn't realize it was such a bad angle until it was glued in place, and then I hit it with some clear red paint, and of course everybody's weathered all to the nines. This is not how it was supposed to come out. The dry brushing was a bit less dry, so I had to just make do. It's okay, that's the part that kind of slides on the ground, so to speak. And this is an indicator of how many things are inside, and the light is, of course, if it's occupied at all, and then some knobs that are actually all on the wrong side. So this thing here should have been on this side, and those should have been on this side, or at least one of them should have been, but I had to take up a whole big thing. And it is storable, because I like to have storable things. So the handle will just go right in this little clippy, and then you can get it off to the back, kind of like that, so it's really just out of your way, and you're not tripping over it constantly. Now, I did struggle to find a spot to put that. Originally, I was going to try to hang it off the butt or hang it off the proton pack. It worked out better just to do that. And the way Thomas did his, it plugs into the side skirt, or in my case, side pockets, the way I painted it. So, but that's it for this guy, because I did something a little bit more extra for fun. So you saw this if you watched Thomas's video, but we didn't go into detail. Obviously, I'm going to go into detail right now. All right, there it is, my masterpiece. So to speak of this, and this was a secret build. I did not let Thomas in on this. In fact, after this video is over, I'll include the reveal of when I finally showed it to him. Now, this thing is a masterclass in scratch building. Well, I say masterclass. It was a masterclass for me because I took on a lot of stuff I'd never attempted before. But due to building these things, all scratch building, made this so much easier. I had a much better idea of how to make shapes, how to get things to work, how to cut out things in much better. I don't even know how to describe it. So of course it is the exo containment unit from the Ghostbusters Firehouse. Now I took it from the movie model, movie 1 specifically, where it was a bit smaller, a bit manageable, looked more like an electrical box in the wall. Now, the actual diorama base should be recognizable to some degree as being just some Gundam display base. And for some long time SHOKY viewers, you should know that this was my original base for my reviews, and it's literally just been laying around for years. I didn't know what to do with it, and then I suddenly discovered it and I went, oh, I'm totally doing this. So glued those into shape, or basically glued them all together, gave them in a right angle so I could get this wall display happening. And then I went to G&G Hobbies, or modeling, whatever. I forgot what it's called, G&G Hobbies. Yeah, in Houston, where I picked up the brick here, which is actually styrene sheet in brick form. I was picking up one that was more like a wallpaper, kind of, and then I saw this, and I was like, oh, that's much better. So that is styrene. It is actually, you can hear, real brick. It's shaped. But one thing that sucks is it lacks the depth. So there's not really a good feel there. But for the base down here, this is just plain styrene sheet, kind of etched to look like concrete, and then using some incredibly poor painting techniques, using some Vallejo concrete paint. I ended up making it ended up looking more like concrete than the original intent, because I screwed up so bad and then had to apply it in different ways. I did do a build log, so you'll see a lot of that. But one thing is, because this is set in the world of GBN, I wanted this to have a feel that even though it's a Ghostbuster looking thing, it's still happening in a Gundam or Gunpla world. So you can see even through the concrete, you see the bases sticking through, and of course they broke through the brick to plug it into the wall, so it is powered by the GBN power system, that kind of stuff. The bricks were just kind of a whitish, light tan, pale color. This is nothing but Tamiya weathering powder rubbed on, and the mortar, so to speak, is just the gap in the bricks. So, and then it just looks like old bricks, and then I added more kind of streaking, just a bunch of powder and water, and let it run, and then smeared it in a few places. The diamond plate is also diamond plate sheet. You can buy that. Just styrene sheet, comes in all white. It is painted with silver leaf and then weathered and stuff like that. And these right here are, of course, weapon mounts. I'll talk about that here in a little bit. But mostly I started with the plate there to stand on. You can actually see there's some reflectivity in it still. So still pretty shiny. And yes, it is weathered ever so slightly where they would stand more often. I work on diamond plate at work, so I know a worn diamond plate kind of looks like. So these are the weapon mounting things, because we're pretending it's all here. Now, the actual containment unit itself, I'll zoom in a bit here. It's completely scratch built. So it's made from just styrene sheet to build up all of the actual base bits and stuff like that. Once again, the build log will show off quite a lot of that. And for the big rivets or bolt heads, that's actually styrene rod. I forgot what thickness. And it's just cut to a length, and there's a couple different sizes. So here on these plates, it's a smaller rod, obviously, and then here it's a much larger one, and then rounded off using my Dremel tool with a polishing attachment that had a very narrow kind of round end, and I would just go until they were rounded off to look like bolt heads. The actual warning labels and stuff like that are all water slides from varying Gundam kits. One was the these yellowy ones here are from one of the Banshee Norn kits. Those came from some Unicorn other kits. This one down here came from something else. It still annoys me, it's slightly crooked. The white stripes there are actually white pinstripes that really, honestly, didn't come out as good as I wanted them to. It was a much narrow, or I thought it was much narrower than it was, but any more narrow, I probably couldn't have got as straight a lines as I could. But the effect is still there. And maybe one day I could pull it off if I need to. The wires are the same Cat 5 cable that I did for the backpack, and just twisted and crammed into shape, along with adding a conduit end kind of to it. The wires here are just the leftover bits of wire from that, and then the end bits here, little coax connectors, are actually cuts out same stuff as this, but then I drilled a hole in the middle of it and then glued the wire in place, and that kind of gave it an extra cap. And then actually this guy up here is still loose, but it's it's still there. And then the light panel is the one thing, or the kind of the light panel slash switch panel is the one thing I screwed up because I got those backwards. The green should be on the bottom, but that's okay. The wires are the same black wire for this guy, just painted silver, and run out of there up into the junction box. And all of that is all scratch built. So that was styrene tubing that I already had for another project that I actually never started, and then built the junction box out of both regular plate and then actual square tubing that I was going to use to add some vertical beams, I guess, or studs, or whatever you want to call it, but it would have taken up too much space and broken up what I was working with. And then the straps are all custom built as well. You'll see all of this in build log and pictures. And the very last thing I did, so literally everything else is attached to this, the lights. So those are actually clear bits of red and green clear runner, and then another little bit of runner, all of which came from the Amazing Exia and the Exia Dark Matter, because the runners are the same. So I got the exact same elbow bend off of a runner piece, and then these are actually vernier bills cut down to shape and then drilled through so that the lights would fit. Alright, but one other cool thing about it, it's still sort of modular. Most of the thing is held together by super glue, but in this case everything else is still modular. I don't know where my lighting went. So I could still remove the containment units held in place by these two little set screws. Those are actually ones from Action Bases. And then the wiring conduit is also screwed in right there. It's not drilled in all the way because it's a much shallower bit, but I got it about that far. And you can see how the brick wraps around the edges in a very not clean manner. That's because when I cut off the base parts, they were not clean, and you know, they bubble and molten plastic and all that. Now, as for the interactivity of this guy, one, you can just stand there and look pretty cool. But the other main thing, so with the backpack detached, we can just plug him right. Oh, I can't see what I'm doing. Kind of going by feel here. I didn't want to lose my focus. There it goes. So plug that in right there. And because I wasn't paying attention, normally I do this part first, but you can take the trap, which I completely flubbed on, and you can plug that in right there. So the interactivity with that and the actual weapons, so that they're quote-unquote charging. And the other side is, of course, for the Rodimus's setup. You know, they actually fit his trap, his backpack. The backpacks have the same connection, so that part's not a problem, but making sure that, you know, we could have our stuff together. Now, of course, if you haven't seen his review for some reason and you're wondering a lot of the details that are happening with this one. But there's the guard frame, the Buster frame doing his thing. And once again, that's why the wrist is so loose. And then, by the way, that handle does not work. Please don't pull it. You'll break it. And no, for those wondering, I could not engineer it so that the door could open and you could deposit the trap. Now, if I ever wanted to do it again down the line, I would need to have some very narrow hinge, like right here. I'll zoom in and post. I actually made that fake looking hinge. That is just the two different bits of styrene rod. And then, of course, the handle. None of that works. So, but that's it. So that's going to be it for this awesome custom that I did. And, of course, this is technically the end of a spooktacular whatever that Rodimus does on his channel. But, you know, this was my contribution. It was a fun co-build. Once I saw what he was doing, I needed to do something of my own. So whenever I did this, I intended to just copy his design and maybe just upgrade it a little bit. I upgraded it a lot. And, you know, sometimes I feel like I I feel like I didn't want to make him feel bad. Like, look, this was your idea, but I did it so much better. In fact, he was more impressed to the point that he wants to create not this exactly, but he wants to create the next backpack. So he's working on something else, but I might have a continuation for this in the future as well. I don't know. And because this is still modular and this stuff can be removed, if I wanted to expand the display down the line, I still could. It won't be that hard. In fact, I could probably do it better next time. But guys, let me know what you think down below. And yes, this is the thing that I was working on before I did Rampage. So that's why it's like, it's a little bit funny that I got this thing painted, this part done, all before I finished Rampage. Which, by the way, just for comparison, since they were my 2 customs that I knocked out in the month of October, for the most part, kind of. Here they are together. Obviously, they don't work in the same universe by any means, but there you go. So there's my 2 customs. Like I said, go over to Rodimus' channel. If you have not watched his Spooktacular finale, where this debuted, technically speaking, by all means, please go do that and watch the whole video that entails. Because that was a heck of a day. But thanks as always to my patrons who, you know, help every single month with donating. If you want to do that, check out the link for the Patreon page down below. And Shoky merch, yeah, I still haven't decided if I'm going to continue having it. Nobody's really buying any of it. Double October had very, very few sales. So I don't know if the store will continue. But if you really want Shoky merch, please get something. Because frankly, you know, it does actually help the channel. Every little bit does. I'll catch you guys on the next review. And remember, as always, keep on busting. Okay, now that's done. Let's see. Yeah, I know you want out, but can't help you there. But I know where you're gonna go. This may not be easy. It's been a while since I've had to get into here. Okay. Oh, it's way back in there, but I guess when you really need to lock some stuff away, that's what you do. Time for you to go. Hope we never see you again.